All right, we're going to talk about vulnerability today. It's an odd topic, isn't it, in the middle of a training around with business owners, entrepreneurs, confident, successful people. And I'm introducing a whole idea of vulnerability. Why would we do that? We're talking sales, we're talking about handling objections, we're talking about closing questions, all that really amazing stuff that we did yesterday and all the great stuff that you're going to be doing today as well. So to backtrack a little bit, the concepts and the mindset that we have is all linked into our core values. And our core values are how we know to interact with people, to engage with people around us and the world in general. Where do we develop our core values? Well, we develop them from very early on, from birth right through our family of origin, through our culture, and through our experiences. So that's what's informing all of your decisions on a daily basis, whether you know it or not, because most of the time it's unconscious. And that's what's holding you back to accessing success. It's what's holding you back from making that phone call to meet somebody, or from asking those closing questions. Or like we've seen yesterday, Lorraine said, nobody's doing sales activity, me included. And one of the reasons is that's because the mindset we have. One of the mindsets that is holding us back is vulnerability. So tell me, audience participation, tell me, when I say the word vulnerable and vulnerability, what are the words that pop into your mind? Making a mistake. Scared. Yeah. Any other? Failure. Yeah. Weakness. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Anyone else? Come on, table 3. You're lagging behind here.
Being taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely taken advantage of. Okay. So. Rejection. Yeah. So rejection, fear, being taken advantage of, weakness, they're all terms that we associate with vulnerability. And my background, working class, big family, vulnerability wasn't accepted. We don't do vulnerability. I don't do vulnerability. No way. Like, I'm not going to let someone see a weakness inside of me because somebody will take advantage of me, or somebody will hurt me because it makes me open and it makes me exposed. So I'm going to, at all costs, avoid vulnerability. Okay, so you can see where the mindset of vulnerability starts to impacting us. The thing is, there's probably people out there now thinking, yeah, I don't do vulnerability. Hand in hand with vulnerability goes shame. They're bedfellows, okay? You feel vulnerability, you feel shame. It washes over us. So they're really close bedfellows. There's people out there I know who are sitting there going, don't do vulnerability, don't do shame, that's not my gig. This part of this course is just not interesting to me. So you can sit and doodle away and not listen, that's fine. I want to tell you.
What about the effects of people as they mature? I guess that's how you mature, because the people that sort of in their early 20s have a different kind of, it's a different level of importance, that sort of thing, as they go to 30s and 40s and 50s. People either, maybe as they get older, they go, well, what the heck, I don't care anyway, I'm just going to do it. So I wonder whether you had any comments on
Yeah. So we change. We change as we get older. More life experiences can change our understandings and our mindsets and our concepts. Core values tend to be very stable in us, and while the top level of vulnerability might change, underneath usually the bottom level, the one of being accepted, good enough, not rejected, tends to stay the same. It just looks very different on the surface level. So you mightn't care if your mates don't ask you out for a drink wherever you're a teenager. That's a big thing. But other areas will cause you to have that vulnerable feeling in different ways. You'll be more feeling vulnerability in business, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, the different areas where we feel vulnerable. But you are definitely right. Some people feel less vulnerable as they get older. Some people feel worse. Some people feel more vulnerable because they feel like they should have the experience and they should know better, but inside they're still feeling not good enough and vulnerable. Am I talking too fast? Yeah. Thank you. At this table now has gone up in my estimation. All right. What I'm going to tell you, for the people who are sitting there thinking, I don't do vulnerability, so this part of the course is not for me. If you don't do vulnerability, you don't experience vulnerability and shame, well, then you don't have a capacity to experience compassion and empathy. So people who cannot do vulnerability and shame and have no capacity for compassion or empathy, they're psychopaths. So you have a choice here today. You can either admit to experiencing vulnerability and shame, because I know you all do, well, no doubt about that, or you can out yourself as a psychopath. So it's up to you. If you're comfortable outing yourself as a psychopath, that's fine. So for the psychopaths among us, you have two choices. You can sit here and doodle and ignore all this that I'm talking about vulnerability, or you can take yourself out and get a coffee. But we'll all know who you are if you walk out that door.
No pressure.
No pressure. I'd love some people to go, yeah, I'm a psychopath, I'm off. People here know about Brené Brown. You heard her? If you don't know her, you need to know her, okay? You need to be looking up her stuff. She's incredible. She is an American social work researcher, and she has done a lot of work around vulnerability and shame over the last decade or so. And she works with all the top businesses. Yeah, she's working with all top CEOs. So this is coming into the culture of business as well, which is really important. So the definition that we are going to use about vulnerability is the willingness to show up and to be seen when you have no control over the outcome. Now, that makes us vulnerable and that makes us feel exposed. The thing is, what we know so Brené has spent a decade interviewing thousands of people about their experiences, their understanding, their mindset, and the impact of shame and vulnerability in their lives. And she's also collected research from around the world. And what we now know is that far from being a sign of weakness, which I would have relieved myself around vulnerability, vulnerability is the greatest measure of courage that we have. So the more we are willing to be vulnerable and open ourselves up to greater possibilities and to success, the thing is, the more we open ourselves up then to failure and to shame as well. So as soon as you step outside your comfort zone and start trying to challenge yourself, pick up the phone, make the phone call, go to the network meeting, we start to feel vulnerable. And that's what blocks us. That's what starts to stop us. And that's when we have all these excuses that Lorraine was popping her little bullshit button for yesterday. I don't know if many people here have had the pleasure of listening to Dean's signature talk. He does a talk on, he sums up his 30 years, don't mind if he'd say 20, it's nigh on 30 years now, experience of sales. And he will tell you the secret of successful selling in just 2 words. Have people heard that talk?
Yeah.
Cool, okay, so it's a good talk, yeah? Yeah. We're only saying that because he's sitting behind us. All right, so what Dean will tell you that the secret of successful selling is 2 words, is show up. And he will do a talk this where he can actually really prove that that's the way it's been for him over the years. I always get the last word on Dean. It's part of the marriage arrangements, yeah? So I'm going to say to you that being successful at anything, whether it's sales, business, intimate relationships, parenting, friendships, you name it, because it's interacting with people, you have to show up, so he's right, but you have to take the risk of allowing yourself to be seen even when you don't know the outcome of the interaction that you're going to have. So that is the definition of vulnerability. So to be human is about interaction. Whether you're talking in business or your personal life, it's all about interacting with people, yet engaging with people. We keep talking about connections. They go on about the magic of connection. That's what we do as human beings. So to connect makes us vulnerable because we have to allow ourselves to be seen to connect. And we spoke about selling at that bottom line where we're getting down to what people really need. In order to do that, we need to connect with people. So to be human is to be vulnerable. But I'm going to refine that for today's talk and say to be a business owner is to be vulnerable. So hence, I'm standing up here talking to you about vulnerability today. So if we are going to put ourselves out there, be vulnerable, start a new business, be successful, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. Because while you're in your comfort zone, you're not vulnerable. It's great. It's really safe and you can stay really small in your comfort zone. As soon as you step outside of that comfort zone and you put yourself out there and you risk, taking the chance of turning up and being seen, you risk vulnerability. You risk failure. But that's where the magic happens. You see, you can have comfort or you can have growth, success, innovation. You can't have both at the same time, and you certainly can't have both as a business owner. So you have to make the choice of where you want to be. Brené Brown talks about this idea. The idea of allowing yourself to step up and be seen, whether that's a time where you've done that or whether that's a place, something that you've done. Whenever we take that decision to step up and be seen, she uses the image of an arena. They're in Rome, okay? Gladiators walked down into the arena. They were very much exposed and very vulnerable to the attack from the lions coming towards them. They were surrounded in the arena by people who were heckling them, jeering them, whatever they were doing, but they were exposed and vulnerable to fight this challenge that was coming towards us. So she uses that image to talk about arena moments that we have in our lives. So an arena moment is any time or any place where you take the decision to show up and allow yourself to be seen, even when you know you are vulnerable. You know, when you have that feeling and you know, oh, I don't want to do this, or this is really difficult, or I'm really uncomfortable, that feeling where you know this is hard. Well, that is an arena moment. The difference between people who are successful and not successful at anything that they spoke about yesterday, it's whether you will actually go into the arena and allow yourself to experience that risk. So, what I'm going to ask is, just for a couple of minutes, just think of arena moments that you have faced over the last even number of months. I know we've all been on Christmas, but what I'm talking about can be applied to your personal life as well. So hold that in mind, in the back of your mind when we're talking. So arena moments in your personal life as well. But I'm asking you specifically for arena moments around your business. That might be, I went to that network meeting and I stood up and I did my pitch. I was allowing myself to be seen and to be vulnerable. Or that might be, I stood up yesterday and I gave my pitch in front of all my peers, and I gave it in front of David Price, knowing that I was going to be evaluated and criticised in some way. I seen the reaction of people when that was coming. Everyone around the tables. It was really funny. It was like nearly contagious. You could see their body language and their breathing going. So that idea of being vulnerable, you all did it. So you all allowed yourself to experience that and to stand up. Maybe my arena moment is standing here in front of my peers and talking to you this morning. I'm showing up and I'm being seen. And I don't know the outcome. You might all think this is a load of rubbish by the end of the time I talk. Arena moments, when you think of an arena, you think of a grand, event, something that's, really big in your life and really challenging, because that's what an arena kind of brings to mind. But arena moments can be small moments. It can be picking up the phone to make the cold call. Or it can be going into a sales meeting that you really, really need for your business. Or it can be talking to an employee and saying, I have to let you go. So arena moments are different for all of us, but we all have them. So I want you to take a couple of moments. I'm going to ask you to reflect on arena moments that you've had. And just in that little group around your own table, if you're willing to share some times where you have actually gone in and been willing to risk being seen. So 2 moments to talk among yourselves, and we're going to come back. So bring to mind some arena moments. Is everyone clear what I'm asking, yeah? You get the idea? Business part, yeah. just a kind of side note there on language as well, because your language that you've been using over the last day or so has been really interesting. You turned around and said, I had no choice, and then you quickly changed it. Well, I felt like I had no choice. You've always got a choice, and you chose to show up and to allow yourself to be seen. Which is, and quite 2 of those are quite spectacular, kind of big moments, and they do bring to mind the kind of the arena scene. But your arena moments can be much smaller than that. They can be, like, I think very, very many of us felt that vulnerability and that kind of exposure yesterday. The minute we were told that we were going to be saying those speeches or that pitches out loud, everyone around the table, you could see the reaction. That's an arena moment. That's when you're feeling vulnerable and exposed. Okay, so when we step into the arena, okay, it's really frightening. Yeah, so we step into a place where we know that we are exposed and we're vulnerable. So the first thing that we do is we scan the audience, we scan the seats around the arena, and we're looking for the critics. We're looking for the people who are going to laugh at us. That's what you said. You're thinking of people who laugh, or they didn't laugh at you, you said. We were looking for the cynics, the people who are going to tell us that we shouldn't be there and we're not actually good enough, because that's what we do when we're feeling really vulnerable. So who would you think are the biggest critics? When you go to stand up and do something where you're putting yourself out there, you're out of your comfort zone, who do you think is your biggest critics? The people who occupy those seats in our arena are ourselves. So once we step out of the comfort zone and we allow ourselves to be exposed and vulnerable, the gremlins start happening for us. The self-criticism, I'm not good enough, the imposter syndrome, that's like, what am I doing here in a group of all of these accountants or in front of 200 delegates? Like, you know, what I shouldn't be here, I'm not good enough. So the biggest thing that's happening to us is our own self-doubt, and that's, as business owners, that's what's stopping us from moving forward. When you go to pick up that phone and all that vulnerability comes up and you're feeling exposed and you put the phone down because I'm not asking for a one-to-one, or I'm not going to ask the bank manager for an overdraft, or whatever the arena moment is. A lot of it is in our mindsets. So we know that if we expose ourselves and we allow ourselves to be seen and vulnerable, we risk failure. So they say that fortune favours the brave. Yeah, but it also favours failure. Fortune favours the brave, but failure also failures the brave. The more we put ourselves out there to be brave, the more risk we have of failing. And with failure comes pain and shame. And Michael, you said the word shame. That idea of walking back in and you had that shame over you, the shame of the walk of shame, you said. Do we all know that? You know that hot flush that goes over you when you cringe? That's shame. And that is connected with vulnerability. And we will do everything in our power, because shame is toxic. We will do everything in our power to avoid that.
On that too, though, like if you're in the audience and you see that happen to someone, you're not internally going,
No.
Like you're actually going, oh wow, poor person.
Yeah.
So, but yet we seem to think that other people are going to do that to us. But no one's actually ever going to do that.
Because the gremlins are in your own head. Yeah, unless you're a psychopath. There might be a couple here because nobody denied it either. But the gremlins are in our own head. And one of the things that we find most attractive, and this comes out in all the research, and one of the things we connect most with people, when they're vulnerable. So when they let us see their vulnerability, we really like that in people because we feel they're real and they're authentic. But you're not going to see my vulnerability because that makes me weak and you can take advantage of me. So that's the way that we are operating. Where, yeah, you're right. People are not in that audience going, he screwed up there. All right. So if we are brave enough, often enough, we will fall. Yeah? The moment you signed up to be a business owner, you entered your arena and the whole journey began. Okay? Now you weren't ready. None of us entered this being a business owner thinking of the emotional roller coaster we were going to go through. None of us realised that entering that and we were going to be vulnerable and we were going to fail. But once you start stepping outside, you're being innovative, you're being different, you're growing, you're being successful, you experience failure. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to get your ass kicked, and you are going to fail. And that is the only path to success. And it happens to every single one of us. I could have done much more on this. These people all have a couple of things in common. They are all super successful. In their whatever their given field was. As business people, as actors, whatever. They're all super, super successful. The other thing they have in common, they all repeatedly failed. So they all got really good at failing and being okay with still showing up and being seen once they failed. Whereas most of us are trying to avoid failing. Whereas the better we get at failing, the more successful we're actually going to get. When you walk into your arena, when you allow yourself to be seen and you allow yourself to feel exposed, okay, you're going to fail. Right? So what I want you to do now, Brené Brown refers to this as being face down on the arena floor. What she's doing is she's pulling from a talk given by Teddy Roosevelt many years ago. It's called The Man in the Arena. If you haven't read that, read it. It's really, really good. And what they're saying is that the praise belongs to the person who's trying, who's in the arena, who's willing to get in there and is willing to keep trying, even when they're face down in the arena and their face is marred with the soot and the dirt from the arena. They still rise strongly and they keep trying. That's success. That's what will make you a good business owner. That's what will make your business successful. So I want you to think about your face down in the arena moments now. We've had two really good examples already this morning, but I want you to think of, it doesn't have to be those grand ones. It can be, I picked up the phone to do the cold calling and the person said, no, stop ringing me, stop annoying me, I don't want to buy your product. Or I took the step of asking someone to have a one-to-one meeting with me and they said, nah, I haven't got the time. And straight off that we have taken ourselves out there, we've allowed ourselves to be exposed and we have fallen flat down on our face on the arena floor. So that's when you get that wash of shame, that hot feeling that goes over us and that we just feel, so we recoil back from that. So I want to ask you to turn around. If you are comfortable telling people about times that you have been flat down on the floor of the arena, where you have risked showing up, being seen, and you have failed. Just at your tables again, a couple of minutes, folks. Just think about it. They don't have to be the grand ones that we had today, because hopefully we don't all fail on such epic proportions on a regular basis. But we do fail. All right, folks, I'm going to bring you back to the main group so that we can kind of continue. I'm really grateful for the fact that people are willing to join and to actually start talking about these kind of things, because it's not the typical business conversations that we normally have. So it's really good that people are willing to do that. So all right, the minute we walk into an arena moment, it is scary. Yeah. So when we are flat down on the floor, there's a wash of shame running over us, and we're feeling really, really, really small. What do we do? What do we do at that moment when we're face down? Instinctively, we will try to make meaning about what's happening to us. We are biologically hardwired to make meaning in our lives and what's going on around us. The problem is, at that moment when we're lying flat down on the floor, our meaning making is driven by emotion, the emotions of shame and vulnerability. So very often we're trying to self-protect, so we will make a story around our circumstances, and without even complete data, we will come up with this story. So it's not correct, it's inaccurate a lot of the time. Very often we will default to familiar, comfy slippers kind of stories, ones that we've told ourselves again and again, ones that we're familiar with, probably from childhood all the way up. Because these things are, we learn them, and I said that from our culture, from our family of origin, from our experiences. So we will go to meaning-making stories that we recognise and feel comfortable with. And there's two really big ones that most of us will use. So probably very few people here that won't have gone to one of these meaning-making stories in the past. So we tell ourselves a story: I'm not good enough. I'm lying flat down, I've absolutely failed, I put myself out there, I risked showing up and being seen, and I failed. Shame is washing over us, and one of the first things we go towards, we grab the comfy slippers: I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be here, I can't do sales, I'm not even a good psychologist, what the hell am I standing? Yeah, we start to kind of put ourselves down, and that protects us, and it makes us small again, and it makes us stop stepping out of our comfort zone, and it protects us. It kind of locks us into that space. People familiar with that form of protection? I'm not good enough. Huge, huge area. Scarcity, I'm not good enough at whatever. You can put anything: I'm not good enough because I don't know enough information, because I haven't been trained properly, whatever. So there's lots of reasons that we think we're not good enough. The second one that we'll go towards is the blame explanation. I'm lying on the ground, flat on the floor, I have really screwed this up, and I'm really vulnerable here. I'm looking for a reason why, and I'm going to blame. I'm going to blame, and I'm going to turn around and say, that District 32 is a load of crap, networking doesn't even work. Look, I went there for a one-to-one, and I'm on the floor, I failed. It's just crap. Or they told me cold calling would work. They obviously didn't train me properly. They don't know what they're talking about. So another form of self-protection is to blame outside and to start looking for others rather than ourselves, the circumstances or other people to blame. People familiar with the blame one? Yeah, okay. Which one would you say people are more familiar with? The not good enough one or the blame? What feels more comfortable for people? The not good enough one. It's really interesting in my experience with business owners of the District 32. You hear a lot of that blame as well. This doesn't work. Networking just doesn't work. I haven't got anything out of it. It just doesn't work. And actually, it does work. So you need to start looking at why you're flat down and why it's not working for you. In The Empire Strikes Back, there is a scene that's pivotal where Yoda is teaching Luke how to be a Jedi warrior, and he's teaching him how to use the Force honorably. And he's telling him how the dark side of the Force, like greed, anger, shame, can kind of take him over and consume him if he doesn't find a way to balance it and get calm and inner peace, to be able to regulate in that space. So in the scene that I'm talking about, and any diehards will probably recognise this scene, Luke and Yoda are after being training in a swamp. Okay, at the end of one of the training sessions, and Luke gets this kind of odd look on his face, and he looks across, and there's a tree, and there's a cave at the bottom of the tree, and he says, "There's something wrong. I feel cold, or I feel death." And Yoda turns around in his very cryptic way and explains that, "Yep, there is something wrong. It's full of the dark side of the Force, but in you must go." Right, so Luke is there kind of going, "Oh, I'm not really happy about this," but puts on his weapons and he's getting ready to go in. And Yoda says to him, "Your weapons you will not need." I'm trying to quote it the way he says it so, for all the diehards. So Luke goes in, and it's a really eerie cave, okay? So there's steam rising from the ground. It's really eerie. You can imagine the way they set this up. There's some sort of prehistoric kind of reptilian creature going across a branch. There's a snake crawling up. So really it's really foreboding. He feels really exposed, really vulnerable going into this cave full of the dark forces. And as he's going through the cave, he comes across the biggest challenge for him, Darth Vader. Both pull out their lightsabers, and they start to fight, and he chops off Darth Vader's head. The head rolls to the ground, or drops to the ground, rolls away, and the screen face guard flies open. And the face there is Luke's own face. It's not Darth Vader's face. Do people know that scene?
You missed the most important.
Did I? Go on, I knew there was going to be someone like you in the audience. What did I miss?
When Luke says what's in there, he says only what you take.
Oh, he did. You're right. Okay, he's right. God, you're sad. So you can quote this. He's right though. He says what's in there, only what you take with you, which is actually really important to my talk. Thank you, Michael. So what I was going to say is being a business owner is very often being like that. It's like walking into your own arena or your own Yoda cave, that you're feeling really vulnerable, you're feeling exposed, and yet if you want to be successful, in you must go. So, but what's in there are the stories that you're making up. You heard Dean say yesterday that when he's rejected, and oh my God, is he rejected lots of times, okay, he doesn't take it personal. So the story isn't, I'm not good enough, or this doesn't work. He has a very different story, a very different interpretation and perception of what's going on. So he isn't facing that in that moment. He isn't allowing his mindset to stop him from moving towards what he's going, towards his goals. So when we lose, we lose clients. We know we do. People don't meet us for one-to-ones. We don't close the deal. We don't ask the right questions. We screw it up, even though we get to that sales meeting, even though we were told yesterday, if we get to that sales meeting and we don't get the sale, it's us, we've screwed it. Well, that happens. Yeah? The problem with it is the story that we make up around that, how we think other people are perceiving us or what we are telling ourselves about ourselves is actually the most difficult part. And that's what stops us rising off the floor of the arena and moving on to pick up that phone again and to make the call again, or to go back into that sales meeting, or to come back. You spoke about falling down, but you stood up and you came back in to that meeting. So you were face down on the arena floor and you stood up and you allowed yourself to be shown again. Like that's telling me that you are able to kind of push through. Yeah, I'm vulnerable. I know I'm vulnerable, and I'm acknowledging this and I'm moving forward. So as business owners, I'm telling you, in you must go or go home. If you want to be successful, you have to be able to go in and you have to be able to accept and face your vulnerabilities.